Good evening, everyone. I'm Brian Ross. I'm one of the counselors in the high school. And tonight, we thank you for coming out. We want to provide you with some information about financing college education. A couple of things that we will present. One is scholarship information in regards to the Mount Pleasant Area Community Foundation. And then we have two experts here from Mid-Michigan, Beth and Sarah, and they're going to present information about filling out the FAFSA, which stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. So, to begin with, I would like to show you the website, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with. It's called onwardshepherd.weebly.com. And I've encouraged all seniors, I met with all of them but about 4 individually this year, talked about their future plans, made sure they're on track to graduate, and I showed them this website. And the thing I ask them to do is make sure once a week they go to News and Information, and there I will present information throughout the year pertaining to seniors. For example, tonight's meeting has been there for a while, so they should be familiar with that. And I also sent them an email in regards to tonight. If somebody had a conflict tonight, we are recording this meeting and we will post it on the Onward Shepherd website, or if you want to review it, because a lot of the information can almost become overwhelming. So don't panic if it gets pretty in-depth. You can go back and watch it, and they will also give you some contact information, I think, about getting some questions answered. In regards to scholarships, I really want seniors to understand there are 2 major kinds. One is called a merit-based scholarship. That means when they apply to a college, for example, Central Michigan University, the merit-based scholarships are based on 2 criteria, their SAT score and their grade point average. And if that student has met a minimum threshold for that, for example, maybe it's a 3.0 GPA and an 1100 SAT score, they would qualify for a maroon scholarship. I'm just hypothetically speaking. And as long as they apply early in the fall, they send their transcript and they get accepted, the first come, first serve will receive that merit-based scholarship. Now, many of those merit-based scholarships are dependent on them maintaining a certain GPA throughout their first, second, third year of college. And a lot of times they're renewable for up to 4 years. And each college has different merit-based scholarships. CMU and Saginaw Valley and those schools have some really large ones, like up to $5,000, $6,000 per year. Now, I believe Michigan State, they don't offer much because they have such a massive amount of applicants. There isn't a lot of merit-based scholarships, but there are competitive ones. The competitive scholarships they apply for individually, and then you compete against either local ones, which would be against the students from Shepherd. You might compete regionally, or you compete against other students who have something in common. Maybe it's a religious affiliation, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, athletics, and so forth. And you can look at each college's website and find out what type of competitive scholarships are offered there. The local ones are the ones I encourage all of our seniors to apply for, and they are through the Mount Pleasant Area Community Foundation. And if you go to the Onward Shepherd webpage, and under More, if you look at the senior page, there's also a link that takes you to senior scholarships. And once you get to this page, if you scroll down, there is a link to all of the Shepherd High School scholarships through the Mount Pleasant Community Foundation. When you select that link, it will take you to that website. And once you get there, it'll appear as though you didn't hit the right page, but if you scroll down, it lists all of the schools alphabetically, and then of course Shepherd will be down near the bottom. And then you can click on any scholarship, for example, the Susan K. and Douglas E. Dodge Scholarship. It will give you a little bit of insight about the scholarship, what the criteria is, and then you simply click the Apply Now and fill it out and complete it. The amazing thing about these Community Foundation scholarships. I'll come right back to you, I'm sorry. I don't want to forget my thought. One of the amazing things is every year, we get to the end of the year and we get a phone call that says, nobody's applied for this scholarship. It's amazing to me. And we tell all the seniors to do it, we go into the classrooms and encourage it, but they have to take some time and fill it out. Even if they might not meet the criteria, if they're close, go ahead and apply. It can't hurt anything, because sometimes no one else will apply. Thank you for your patience. You had a question?
So do these scholarships only apply to Michigan schools? Because my daughter's been accepted already, but in Georgia.
Okay, this is a great question. These scholarships only apply to Michigan schools. The merit-based scholarships, every college across the whole country will have certain merit-based scholarships, depending on that institution. So those either exist at that school or they don't, regardless of whether it's Michigan or not. These local scholarships are also applicable for schools outside of the state of Michigan. Okay? Now, if you get the Michigan transfer agreement, which many of our students get while they're here at Shepherd, that is only applicable to public universities here in the state of Michigan. That's the 30 credits they earn, and we'll get like 15, 20 students every year that get 30 credits worth of college during their 4 years of high school here at Shepherd, and it transfers to public colleges. So, very good question, thank you. Okay. With that said, I'd like to encourage you as parents, hound your son or daughter come February to fill these scholarships out. I know it's a busy time of the year, they're in sports and theater and band, but tell them to take some time and do it, because it could be worth $500, $1,000, and there's not a lot of places you can earn $1,000 in a matter of an hour's worth of work. So I encourage you to do that. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to the experts. The one thing I would ask is, if they ask a question, go ahead and repeat it, and that way we'll pick it up on the video. Okay, Beth, are you the spokesperson?
Yeah, I can.
All right, let's give it up for Beth.
I'm Beth Weiner. I'm an admission rep at Mid-Michigan College, and Sarah and I are going to kind of tag team a little bit on this, but I think our biggest overall message tonight is that financial aid analysts and our admission reps are not scary people. So if you do have any questions while you're filling out the FAFSA, feel free to reach out to us. You can use us as a resource, or reach out to the college that your student is interested in directly, to their financial aid department as well. I heard a stat recently where SBSU tracked their financial aid calls, and they fielded like 10,000 financial aid calls in a year. So we are all ready and equipped to answer questions if you come up with something along the way, and we're going to connect you with other resources throughout the presentation as well. So the first question is, what is financial aid? And it's not just loans, that's sort of a misconception. It's grants and scholarships. That is free money, money that you do not have to pay back. So if you fill out the FAFSA, you can see if you qualify for that money. And there's also work study. That's probably the most confusing for students or for parents and students. What if your student fills out the FAFSA and you see on there that they qualify for federal work study? That means that they can apply for jobs on campus and work and earn a paycheck that way as well. And that will help pay some of their living expenses, fun expenses, things like that. And finally, there are loans, and we'll get into each of these a little bit more as we go.
While you're doing that, we do have a handout regarding the Mount Pleasant Area Community Foundation scholarships. I'm going to leave it on the edge here, so as you're leaving today, make sure you grab one of these.
All right, so who can receive financial aid? You have to be a U.S. citizen or permanent resident. You have to be a high school graduate, earn your GED, have a social security number. We have males must be registered for selective service crossed out. That is new this year, so if you had a student in the past, or you have a friend or someone whose son was asked to register for selective service before they filled out the FAFSA, that's no longer required this year. Sarah said we haven't heard officially if that's going to come back or not, but for this year you don't have to worry about it. And once student, you do receive financial aid, it's not guaranteed that you're going to be able to keep it unless your student maintains satisfactory academic progress, that's SAP. So what that means is every institution has their own standards of how they meet the satisfactory academic progress. But they're guided by a federal guideline. So for example, at mid, students have to complete at least 67% of the courses that they register for and maintain a 2.0 GPA, that's a C average, so in order to keep financial aid. So once you're actually a student and you are packaged, that's great, but make sure you're doing well and meeting the SAP requirements at the school that way as well.
So our next question is, how much federal student aid can I receive? When you complete your FAFSA, it's going to ask some questions about income, and then that's going to give you your estimated family contribution, and then we're also going to take our cost of attendance and it'll subtract it, and that'll get you your need. But your EOC will determine how much federal Pell Grant you'll be eligible for to an extent. How much federal student aid can I receive? The first year, currently, the federal Pell Grant amount is $6,495. That does increase each year, so next year it will be a little bit more. If you're eligible for the Teach Grant, we don't have a super ton of those at mid. They're more popular with CMU. That's $4,000. A federal student loan, your first year is $5,500. But if there are some students who are coming in from the early college and they have completed 24 credits, they're going to be eligible to borrow $6,500 in student loans. There's a portion of that that they could borrow in subsidized loans, which a subsidized loan is interest does not accrue while you're in college, and then unsubsidized, a portion they'll be eligible for that, and that accrues interest while they are in college. There's also the Federal Supplement Educational Grant. At mid, we award those to students who have 0 EFCs, but that does determine different between each college. Some colleges will award those to students who have a higher EOC than 0. That is a grant like the Pell Grant that you do not have to pay back. And then Beth talked a little bit about work study. That does determine if you have money in your budget. So if you're a high loan borrower, you might not have much eligibility for work study funding. And there is a Federal Plus loan that the parents can borrow for the students to use in college.
Alright, so that was federal. There are things at the state level too. So I know we had a parent in here that had a student accepted at a Georgia college, so this might not quite pertain to you, but and Brian talked about some competitive scholarships. There is a Michigan competitive scholarship that's based strictly on testing. So if I think it's a 1200 or higher, if you get an SAT score that's 1200 or higher, you could automatically qualify for this. There's also more grant opportunities through the state of Michigan if your student attends a private college, so that's something to look into as well. And then TIP, and then we also, just because we're in the area, there is the Indian tuition waiver where students can get a full ride essentially, but that is handled based on your institution, so you have to reach out to the institution that you're planning to attend to see how they handle that. All right, Mr. Ross did a really good job already of doing some scholarship talking. So obviously the best resource for scholarships is your high school counselor. He talked a little bit about some of the college admissions options as well. If your student is attending a certain college, they want to check their scholarship website as well and fill those out separately and check deadlines for those too. I know at Mid, we open our scholarships, you know, in October, and deadlines are anywhere between October and like March. So check the separate college websites for that. And then here's some different scholarship websites. I noticed they're already on Onward Shepherd as well. So Mr. Ross has that pretty well squared away for you that way as well.
One thing just to note, and I want to say this very tactfully, I do get students sometimes that come to me with the idea that scholarships are automatic. Like, Mr. Ross, I need scholarships, and I'm here for you to get those for me. And then I'll look at their grades and they're getting D's, and I'm like, those don't exist. There is still a competitive component to it. But if a student has a pretty decent GPA and SAT score, there are some scholarships out there. But I guess just tactfully just saying that not all students will receive them. Not everyone will. Thanks.
So how do I apply for aid? That's the big question. So this is very well timed. The FAFSA officially opens for the 2022-23 school year tomorrow. It opens October 1st. And that will be, you will need to include your 2020 taxes for that school year. It's the prior year, they call it. So you'll need to have that. There is no official deadline to fill out the FAFSA. However, for some student aid or state aid, you'll want to make sure it's completed by March 1st. It's also really important to point out, the sooner you fill it out, apply to colleges are then able to package students, and so you can actually look at what aid you're going to get at each college, how many loans you're going to need to take out for each college separately. So the sooner you are able to fill it out, have your student apply to colleges, the easier it is to make some decisions on whether or not you want to attend that college, or if it's feasible or what you were thinking financially. So filling out the FAFSA and applying to college and having them package you is a huge part of the admission decision process. So the sooner you can fill it out, the better.
How do I apply for aid? The first step is to complete an FSA user ID and password. This will be your user ID and password for your FAFSA and when you complete your loan steps. The parent will complete one that they'll have for the child's education time. And then if there's also any siblings and the parent completed one for the siblings, they'll use it again for the next child. So you'll visit the Federal Student Aid website and you'll complete the FSA user ID and password. It's pretty easy. You just basically fill in the blanks. I do recommend that you use your email and your telephone to verify your user ID and password. That way, if you forget your password or user ID, you'll be able to unlock it with your phone number and your email address. So once you've completed your FSA user ID and password, you'll move on to the FAFSA portion of it, and this will be what you'll see when you log in. If it's your first time, you'll want to click the Start Here, but if you are a returning user, you'll go to the Login portion. What to expect. So when you're filling out your FAFSA, I recommend you have your FSA user ID and password ready to go. If you choose to write that down, if it's something that you think you can't remember, keep it in a very safe place. And then you'll log in with your 2020 taxes, your driver's license information, and then you'll follow through the prompts. Common errors when you're using the data retrieval tool, and we'll get to that here in a little bit, are typos and case sensitive, so just keep that in mind. We talked about SAP a little bit. Students can lose aid if they're not within our satisfactory academic progress. And then only borrow what you're going to need, because you will have to pay that back and you only get so much in the your education span. An undergraduate student gets $31,500 and an independent student gets $57,500. It seems like a lot, but you can use it up very quickly if you're borrowing more than you need. Once you complete your FAFSA, you will get a confirmation email that it has been submitted. You'll also get email confirmation from the school that you sent it to. You'll want to watch that email to see if there's any further documentation needed, if you were selected for verification, if there was a FAFSA error, we'll communicate with you that you may need to contact us to give us more information. Each school will provide you an estimated award package once we receive your FAFSA. And then once you decide for sure which school you're going to attend, reach back out to them. You can put up to 10 schools, I believe it is on your FAFSA, 10 or 15. And so if you're not sure, when you're getting all this communication from these different financial aid offices, once you finally choose the one, reach out to them and just verify that you don't need to do anything else. You can learn more on studentaid.gov, our financial aid office. You can always send us an email. We do have some fun videos on our website for more information, in case you're just dying to know. And then our financial aid page is very user-friendly, and it does have an awesome amount of information as well. Yeah.
I can speak a little bit because I just went through this process with my oldest son when he went off to college 2 years ago. And if you filed your taxes electronically, it gets very, very simple because you can actually go into the FAFSA and link your social security number if you're comfortable with that, and it will pull all your tax information in, and it's all completed in just a matter of seconds. I did it. It worked out just fine. I trusted it. Matter of fact, now I don't even do anything. My oldest son, who's not completely responsible, but somewhat, actually files for the FAFSA himself. He goes through the whole process and takes care of it just by linking that stuff together. So don't be afraid of doing that. And don't be afraid of calling a financial aid office, even if you're not going to that particular school. These people work with people like yourselves every day. The questions you have are questions that others have as well. And I do know it can get frustrating when you get into things like this and you get to a roadblock and you just don't know what the next step is. Don't hesitate calling and asking them. If a student comes to see me on the FAFSA in my office, the first thing I'll do with them is give them a telephone number of a financial aid office to call. And then if they still have trouble, I might call with them. But typically, I might not have the answer for them in regards to filling out the FAFSA.
There's something else I would like to add. If your family suffered a hardship during the pandemic and you think that the income you reported on your taxes is not the income that you accurately have right now, feel free to reach out to our office and we might be able to do an income adjustment and lower your EFC so you could get more Pell Grants.
Help me if I say something that's incorrect. Okay. I believe one of the popular questions over the years is if I don't live with both mom and dad at the same time, split family, which person do I use for the FAFSA? And typically it is the one that you spend most time with.
51%.
Okay, 51% of the time you would use their tax information. And again, if you get into a tricky situation like that, make sure you call a financial aid office and find out what they suggest. They're very good at that. Can you give an example of maybe somebody who would be considered on their own, where they wouldn't have anybody's?
Yes.
A student who may be in a homeless situation, McKinney-Vento, or if both parents are deceased, foster care, legal guardianship, those are some examples. Or maybe they have a child, or they were married.
Once you're over the age of 24, you can file separately as well. Otherwise, you do need to use the parent's information until they meet one of those requirements. So one of the nice things is that you do create your own this parent creates their own FSA AID, and so does the student. So you do get to kind of keep some of the separation. If you don't want to give all your information over whatever your situation is, you're able to keep some privacy that way too. And as Mr. Ross says, the data retrieval tool is an amazing tool. It's once you actually get into the FAFSA form, you'll actually be prompted very easily to connect your your taxes to that as well, and it's very user-friendly in general. But like I said, you might have a couple, special circumstances. In those cases, feel free to reach out to us. And the actual FAFSA website has a really good help area as well. You can reach out to someone there. They have a chat box on that as well. So there's lots of help out there, and don't feel like you're asking wrong questions or anything like that. Like Mr. Ross said, someone else probably had the same question. So.
I have a question for you. Is it ever appropriate for a person not to apply because they don't believe that they're going to qualify?
No.
They should always apply. There's no harm in applying for the FAFSA. It is an application just to see what type of aid is available. And it probably is going to be dependent upon the cost of the college they go to as well. Okay. Let's open it up to questions from you if you have some. We were good, huh? Oh, no, okay.
All right, like in my situation, my senator, with her application, she filled it out with her dad, for instance, is my income counted on it as well as an income for her, or is it just her actual biological parent?
Okay, so the question is if a student has a split family and they claim the one for the taxes, do they use the other parent's income at all through the FAFSA?
Are you legally married?
Yes.
Then yes.
Okay, if you are legally married, then the answer would be yes. Good question. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, what we're going to, oh, yes.
Sure, good point. A lot of the kids, are 18, or 17 to 18, and a lot of them do have part-time jobs. Is their income also reported on the FAFSA?
If a student to be going off to college has a job and they are making money, do they claim that on the FAFSA?
If they file taxes in 2020, yes.
If they file taxes in 2020, the answer is yes. Good question. Good question. Okay. Going once.
Any other questions?
If anyone has a question they want to ask privately, feel free to do so when we're all done.
Okay, we're going to post this video up there, and once again, I can't say this enough, if you do have questions, don't hesitate to call any college or university's financial aid office and just say, I'm a student, I'm not going to that college, but I have a question in regards to FAFSA, and they are so pleasant to work with, and they're happy to help you, so don't hesitate to do that. Yes?
I'm a student, so are we gonna have any, meetings as a senior class about scholarships and stuff, and how to apply?
Is there going to be any meeting with the seniors about scholarships and how to apply? Yes. I will actually be a badger going in there and telling you, you need to fill it out, you need to do this, you need to do this. The other thing, especially for parents, so they can also be on top of it, is go to the Onward Shepherd website, go to the news and info, and you can look back over the years of the timing of when certain scholarships come out, because I leave it up there. It's posted from 6 years ago. But as soon as the scholarship comes to my desk, I copy it, I put it on that news and info, I put the deadline, and usually the qualification needed. And to be honest, I know a lot of times the parents are the ones filling out the scholarship form. I get that. And I've done that before too. So parents, you should also look. And I will come into the senior classrooms. And even if you're a dual enrollment student, I will make a visit out there one time and kind of tell you where to go to get that information. Typically, the Mount Pleasant Area Community Foundation scholarships, I want to say it's like February, March, and there is a handout on your way out that will give you more information on that. I thank you for your time. I know your time is valuable. I know this is kind of a high-stress thing when it's come to financing college, but students will find a way, and be patient with it, consult with others, and we'll get you through the process, and before you know it, you're going to be off to college, starting your freshman year, and having great experiences. So thank you for coming and attending. Make sure you check out onwardshepherd.weebly.com. Thank you. Have a good evening.